Very good. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the June meeting for the DSATS board and officers. This is, of course, one of the bi-monthly meetings that we have. In between, we have the community calls. So this is the agenda for today. Same overall structure like all other meetings. General update for the section. A few topics of interest, specific every time. Then the activity update from the different subcommittees. For today, we have the DWIS, which is the biggest activity going on, verification and validation update, and the latest from Robotics. And then at the end, we have a few minutes to talk about upcoming events, webinars, etc. All right, so this is the statistics out of SPE regarding the membership. I think we're pretty much flat, maybe a 2% increase compared to last year. And you can see that in the bottom two graphs for professional members and student members, slightly ahead. Here we're about 40 members ahead out of 2,000. Here we're about 15 members ahead compared to last year. So all in all, it's a good statistic. Somehow people keep coming in, and we need to maintain that trend. We'll talk more about the engagement of the community, etc. The graph on the upper right shows, the numbers of students that convert to professional members cumulatively for the year. So basically, the green from this graph here, people transferring to this graph, to this side here. That's what it is. Small numbers overall, but nevertheless, it's encouraging to see young people coming into the field. That's very good. This on the bottom left is the same graph, doesn't change really from month to month or from year to year even. Service companies have the lion's stake in the membership, but we have members from other sub-segments, operators, contractors, academia, etc. So the flatter, the better, but it's not changing much, month over month. The next set of graphs. Yes.
Could you go back one?
Yeah.
So a couple of things I noticed. One is the gradient of growth from 2021 through 2023 is significantly lower than the growth from 2012 to 2018. So then my question is, does DSATS want to just simply passively track this growth? Or does DSATS want to take action to actually increase the gradient such that it can get back to the growth it had in the past? And then my second thing is in the one on the bottom left, members by category, it would be really interesting if we could understand how many drilling contractors are members, because it's not clear.
Yeah, it's not clear on that graph for sure. Back on the first question, John, I think it's kind of a rhetorical question. Of course, we would like to have a higher growth, but I mean that will take a few things that some of them are within our control, some of them are outside. Within our control are the kind of activities that we pursue and the level of participation and engagement from the community. That is the starting point to generate interest and attract new members, But a bigger factor, I think, is the overall climate for the industry, The years from 2012 to 2018 was a very different environment, I think, in terms of funding, in terms of growth, in terms of excitement. Now, I think the whole industry, and that includes DSATS, SPE, and everybody in the energy sector, it's a very different environment, and I'm not sure that we can expect realistically to have that same level of growth. When petroleum engineering departments are closing around the world and people retire without new people coming in, where is that growth going to come from? So yes, I'm all for it, but I'm not sure how to make it happen. I have a little bit of how can I say, disappointment, if you want, with the level of engagement we see from the existing members. It's the same 20, 30 people that participate, and most of the community is not really active. And we were hoping that these meetings will help drive that participation, and the presentations during the bi-monthly calls, etc. But that's not happening. People are either too busy, or I wouldn't say they are disinterested. The fact that the membership is going up, I think this is a good sign. But why people don't participate more actively, I don't know really. It's very easy to fall off the train. Once it takes commitment and discipline for people to dial in and spend the time, and without that commitment, discipline, participation is not there. So it's a complicated picture, I think, and but I mean, that's not a reason to kind of sit back and watch passively, like you say. We have to do what we can to create those activities, and it's just not going to happen without real boots on the ground, as they say. It cannot happen with 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people doing everything.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point about participation. There was an interesting plot in LinkedIn the other day that shows the number of employees in upstream oil and gas versus production, and it's dropped dramatically.
Yeah.
And I think, you can say it's digitalization, whatever, but people are saying it's consolidation. So the oil companies are consolidating, the drilling contractors are consolidating, and of course they thin out the personnel per barrel as they go on through that process.
It is a little bit ironic, because one of the selling points for automation was to flatten the curve of hiring and firing as our industry goes through its cycles. If you have used technology and automation, you can maintain a flatter curve or headcount curve through all these cycles, and maybe that's what is happening. I mean, with the introduction of technology and automation, can achieve the same, let's say, output without having as many people, and this is good and bad at the same time for us. It shows that the technology works, it delivers what we said it's going to deliver, but it doesn't support headcount increases, at least in the old traditional way. It will require new people like programmers and algorithm development and all that stuff. It's a different type of headcount, but we'll see how it all plays out. And it's not going to get any better going forward with all this AI going on, and remote monitoring, remote operations, etc.
But Dimitrios, I don't think. I mean, even when in 2016, 18, and so on, there was only a small group in the middle running DSATS. Yeah, there's still, just like now, there's a small group really interested. I think the big difference I see is that back then we used to go out and look at what other industries were doing. Yeah, so there's a lot of excitement. Can we use that? Can we use this? And so on. And at the moment we're way more introspective. Yeah, so we're looking at what's going on inside our industry, which is tends to be a little bit depressing. So it might be a good idea to go out and start looking at it. This is drilling. This is not just petroleum. This is a ton more. It's geothermal. It's CCUS. It's a lot of stuff we do with drilling. Anyway, just a comment.
It's a good point, John. And I mean, I know John DeWard had been promoting bringing outside people for the symposium and the ATC event, etc. And we missed the opportunity last time. Maybe we can try to do better this time for the ATC. Let's see. I agree. I think learning from others is important, and bringing in new ideas, fresh ideas, fresh energy.
Maybe there is a lot of offer also of talk or webinar and all the other stuff, so the people are confusing for so many presentations and all this stuff too. Because our group is very specific, and the people that is involved with this need some extra time to see other presentation too.
Yeah. I mean, there is that bombarding of information that all of us suffer from. Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's continue then. This is also standard graphs out of the SP website. It shows, by country and by region, the participation. This also doesn't change much from month to month. The US has, as expected, the highest membership, but we have Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, India next, non-traditional, let's say, well, I shouldn't say non-traditional for Saudi and Nigeria, but India and some of the other countries, newcomers. So that's good, that's healthy sign. Okay, so that's it for the membership. Nothing really groundbreaking here. The next part is the financial update. I'm not sure if we have Robert here on the call. Yeah, he's on the call. Hey, good morning,
Yes.
Robert.
Good morning.
Let's go then.
Yes, over the last 2 months, we have seen a few transactions, mainly the reimbursement to the UIS and TUC teams for the drilling conference, the Drillbotics. And I believe that is the last of our responsibilities for Drillbotics or the drilling conference. Fred or Sashi can speak later. One thing I did this month was I transferred $100 from our DSATS account to our roadmap account, just because we were experiencing a $10 bank fee because we had hit a minimum threshold for the balance in that account, which is $500. So it is should be above $500.
Yeah, Robert, that's strange because there's 4,000 in there.
I'm sorry. I said roadmap in all my comments, but I think it's the DWIS account. And now I'm looking at my numbers and it looks like it's not updated correctly.
The DWIS account, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, so there's 100 in the roadmap that should probably go into the DWIS, right?
It's this one.
Correct.
Here.
Okay.
Correct. I will
Gotcha.
fix that. I will review and fix that.
Okay.
Other discussion points as our drilling symposium, the surplus ended up between what we received from SPE, which was $3,991, and our sponsorships were around $5,900. And another discussion point I didn't list here is I need to get with Edgar. It appears we need to pay for Wix for voting capabilities. We use that quite a bit. So Edgar, if we can take that offline, that would be great. And I did research options to find interest-bearing accounts, and I'm still having difficulty because the interest-bearing accounts that we're all familiar with are personal checking accounts or personal savings accounts, but when it comes to business accounts, the options are much more limited. And so to find interest-bearing checking accounts that are business friendly, you have to go to more regional banks or banks that I've never heard of. And even then, the interest rate is much lower than you would expect versus a personal checking account. So I'll continue to research that, but I'm not having very much luck currently.
Next slide. Sorry, did I go too fast here? Only one slide, Robert.
Yeah, I have a couple of hidden slides if anyone wants to see the breakout of the drilling symposium.
Let's do that.
Hey, on the DWIS one, since it's so low and it's been so low for some time, an alternative would be to close the account, roll the money into the general account and manage it as a subset of the general account just by tracking what it has. Does it foresee collecting any sponsorships and organizing any events and using funds? Or is it just a burden to have it there?
Well, I think that's a good point, John, and we can discuss when it comes to DWIs. I think we are at a turning point on the DWIs with this demo that is coming up, and Matt and the rest of the advisory board are looking to see how we can expand this, how we can take advantage of this momentum and maybe bring in some funding potentially to drive some of this work, you know. So I think it would be premature to close the account now. Let's see how it goes for the next year or so, if we manage to gain any more traction, and then we look at it again at that point. That's my suggestion. But this is some of the other slides that Robert has prepared. This is for the event back in March. He did make some money, 3,900, 4,000 almost. Notice the next is a comparison. The next slide, I think, Robert, right, between the different years.
Yes, I think that would probably be more interesting for everyone on the call.
Let me see, is this
slide
8? 8, okay.
Yeah, so this is the last 3 years. I've started to keep a running total. The table I had to split here because of what you can put in a PowerPoint. The half of the table on the left is our revenue, which includes registration, and you can see fluctuates quite a bit from 2022 to 2024. Our sponsorships, which also fluctuate quite a bit, and then our SPE AV allowance, which I include as a credit here because then I subsequently subtract it off as an expense. The table on the left are the expenses, and I get a variety of granularity year over year, but those are roughly the same. The only caveat to that was in 2023, we have the live stream expense. But other than that, we have pretty much just the AV and catering expenses.
Yeah.
And so you can see the surplus at the bottom below the table on the left year over year. And 2023 was a stellar year.
Fundraising, yeah.
Yeah, it's all driven by getting sponsorships. Huh?
Yeah, it makes a big difference, yeah. I mean, tickets pretty much cover the expenses, 1 or 2 sponsors. To make money, it's the extra companies bringing, yeah. In 2022, the registration was very low. It was on purpose because coming right after COVID, we wanted to encourage students and people to come back in person. So I think we had made the registration like $25 or something for people and for the professional members and free for students. And that's why it was that low. Okay, so let's continue then with the next couple of other topics before we go to the activities. So last month we had the community call, regular bi-monthly call with the members. I think one interesting point out of that was the presentation that Jonathan Carney from NOV gave on the challenges of calculating the ECD from a verification and validation perspective. So Jonathan participates in Rodica's subcommittee, and the presentation that he gave was, both on how you can rely on sensors or someone else's sensors, how to speak, but also the algorithm part, how you do the calculation. It was an example of that kind of combines all the different issues that we see on verification and validation and interoperability. There are a couple of other presentations that members on that group gave us, one from Ensign, Sam, and one from Safe Influx, Brian gave, that I think would be interesting for the community to see. So maybe some of the upcoming calls, we use those as well to spread as much that knowledge as possible. The next point I have there was that the end of May, June 1st, is the deadline every year to submit an annual report to SP, all technical sections, complete a form, a standard form, where we answer a questionnaire there about the health of the section, the activities, representation of different areas, financial report for those sections that have an account, etc. So we submitted those, and they are available for any officer or board member to look at. There was not much change compared to last year, the same activities. We don't have new initiatives on the pipeline, mostly because of lack of participation. The human factors was one that we were looking for a while, but it hasn't really progressed, and it lies more with the ART group now. So it's still in the pipeline. If we manage to get traction on this, it's going to come back up. Then one more point that John DeWatt suggested was to look at the topics that we identified a couple of years ago, 21, on what we called the V2, DSATS V2. At that time, if you remember, we had an initiative to bring in new people and rebrand, if you want, the section. And there was an exercise that took like 3 months, in the fall of 2021, if I remember correctly. But we came up with a few topics that bubbled up, if you want, through discussions and work groups, etc. And here are the topics that were identified. The color scheme, don't read too much into it. We combined different activities, different talks, different points, different groups, trying to make it workable, But at the end of the day, this was a list that was identified as the activities that there is interest to pursue. And you will recognize in there some of the things that are going on today. For example, the DWIS is right there on the first bullet on interoperability. On the bottom of the list is Drillbotics, the existing program that has been going on for years, and now we're trying to see how we can keep it going. In between, there was the human factors that we try to pursue, but we didn't go really very far. And there are a few other verification and validation is there, which has become an approved subcommittee under DSATS, and there is several others. Now, the pipeline it has actions in the active, proposal in there. How do we get off the ground? Are they relevant? That's something that we always need to keep looking at. Should we take them out? I'm not sure why. If they are relevant, if we identify them as points of interest, unless we decide that there is no more interest, then they drop out. But if not, then the only reason that these are not happening is because we don't have enough people stepping up. Really, that's what it boils down to. Now, for people to step up, there has to be, some reason, some logic why we do it. What is the expected outcome out of that? How it's going to help? What impact it's going to have? To answer these questions, it takes some work. These were identified mostly as points of interest. People suggested this because they were interested, but without all this background work about, the business case, so to speak, why we should do each one of them, and who participates, who benefits, etc., etc. That work is not done. So I'm not sure we can answer all these questions here today. Maybe we need to have an offline couple of calls with a group here and anybody else who wants to participate and review and decide. But again, it boils down to participation. I cannot emphasize this point enough, So I don't know if anybody has any comments or any thoughts on this. how to proceed from here on this particular list, how to drive participation, etc. But that's a point that will keep coming up, I think, you know. Any feedback from anyone or suggestions?
Is there anything on this list we're not addressing? For example, 10, interoperability is DWAS, accelerate implementation of technology is management of change, right? So that's each company is addressing that. DWAS, DSATS isn't. Human factors, there's now an understanding that what is typically meant by human factors is not what we're after. We're not looking at that just a display. We're looking at a lot more than display. Context and metadata, that's DWAS. Flow control and broader drilling optimization. Those are applications. On the commercial side, I'm not sure DSATS would do anything there. But anyway, V&V, silo fragmentation, that's been there. We're trying to address that with interoperability. I don't see. I mean, it's a good list, but I don't really see anything that we're not doing there. I'm not sure about number 6, ESG.
Very broad, very vague also, but I mean, if we start going into more details and looking at, you know, geothermal and carbon capture and some of the newer, let's say, domains, that maybe that will generate some interest and new people, new faces coming in. But we have to. I'm not sure how to do that. You know, I mean, it's people dialing in and offering their time, and because they believe. I think that's kind of the key ingredient to get any of this going. You know. Anyway, I mean, I'll leave you with that, and we can. I mean, we can continue this discussion by email, suggestions, etc. We can have another call, off-schedule call if needed. But I think there is here, you know, some work that is needed to.
Yeah, Dimitrios. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with the list. I guess, you know, in the DWIS group, we did our change framework review, right? What was it that we were trying to change, and we kind of refreshed some of the strategies and tactics around that. I mean, is that really the key discussion that you're after? Because, you know, the activities is going to stay about the same, right? I mean, the key question is, why are you doing them, and what's the mandate for doing them? I think that's where people will show up and lend their support, right? Once they understand what it is that it's trying to accomplish. So, I mean, we could, you know, schedule, you know, a similar workshop for DSATS leadership and do something like that to see if we can't help clarify what the mission is and the leadership function in completing the activities.
Absolutely.
I think something to add to that, Matt, that goes through my mind is what are the levers that DSATS can pull? Because something like silo fragmentation of our industry, that's a major issue. And it's, to me, it's both organization stroke culture and digitalization. It's not one or the other. And there needs to be a significant change. But I don't think DSATS can probably accomplish that. But if DSATS said, here's 1 or 2 levers we can pull to help that move along, then that might be something that can be more easily accomplished than trying to eat the elephant.
So John, number 9 there on the list is one that keeps on coming up again, is just telling everybody what we're doing, right? So and we're really not great at that, huh? I mean, you have DSA BOC, right? And some on the DWIS site and so on, but we really don't go out like the WPTS did, and actually have a structured, if you like, training or guidelines that people can actually grab and get hold of. We don't do that.
Yeah, so
Whereas I think we have the knowledge to do it now. Huh?
Yeah, they built the guidelines, so their ebook. They built the training program, which is remote. I think people pay for it, gets very positive feedback. The other thing they do that's rather interesting is they have, I think, about six committees that have a topic, and they perform different things within those committees. And then they have twice yearly meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And in those meetings, the first day is those subcommittees face to face. And then the second day is a report out of the subcommittees to the whole group. And the whole group tends to be around 100 people. So they have a very active methodology. And I've asked Robert a couple of times and some other ones in that group, because I touch on them a fair bit. You know, how do you get all these people involved? And they said, basically, we have passionate people. So they've got, I guess, 100 people that are passionate, and they drop into these different committees and they do stuff. I don't know how to emulate it. I mean, they've grown it from ISC WSA, which started in probably the mid-90s. So they've had a long track record, but they have passionate people who get involved, and they have a process of subcommittees that meet twice a year for one day face to face each, and then get together on the second day with the bigger group.
Yeah. Okay.
It's probably something to work towards, huh? That approach. I mean, we have people who are passionate on automation and so on, and all the different facets of it. But we're in the stage of actually creating it, so it's a little bit more difficult for us to see you know, the forest for the weeds, or whatever you want to, whatever model you want to use. Yeah.
I think the other thing that's different is there are key focal points at operators for survey management.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, and that lends itself to that showing up at a technical section meeting very well, and it's not mature the way that wellbore surveying is. So I mean, it's certainly something to work toward and emulate, but we have a ways to go.
Yeah, I think that my impression, I think, is what you say, Matt, is very positive, or very positive, is very powerful. My impression is that where people are being paid to do a job that aligns totally with a committee in SPE or ART or wherever else, they put their energy into it.
Yes.
Where it's purely volunteer and it's evening work and weekend, you lose them. They got families and other stuff.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's continue then, for the sake of time. We have some more material to cover. The next three sections are the updates from the activities. I'm not sure if we have Eric here on the call. If not, I can give the update. These are a few slides that Eric prepared for the community call last month. So for this upcoming demo, that is going to be hopefully in October of this year, you can see here some of the details. We have now, we have some participants, from the industry, namely NOV and HMH, and between that, each one of them have their own ADCS. And this demo is going to be a distributed demo, 3 different demos, where we're going to use each one of those ADCS systems. The first one is going to be driving the simulator that NORS has over there. The HMH is going to be driving a different system in the back, and between is going to be driving Aker BP's simulator. So 3 different environments. And the idea there is to demonstrate that you can take a piece of software, an advisor or a consumer of data, and plug it on each one of those 3 different setups without changes, to show basically the interoperability, to prove the concept of interoperability that is possible without customizing every time, without creating a specific installation that you can make your application portable and go from rig to rig and from client to client, and without the need to know what is behind, what hardware is running, what specifics of the software, etc. Is a key point to demonstrate, and also very key point is that now it's not anymore an internal effort within DSATS that we're trying to put a demo together, but the industry is engaging. So to me, it's a turning point, this, and if we can make this successful, it will open more doors. And next year, the year after, this will get more legs to run, So that's why I was saying earlier that it's not a good idea to close the DWIS account at this point, Now, to be specific, Eric has to go out, is going out, and is looking for funding from operators in Norway, local companies over there, to do some of this work, to drive this development for the demo, And this is something that we could do on a more central role as DWIS or as DSATS. There is no reason really why we cannot raise those funds and help Eric in what he's doing. Eric is not a for-profit entity, nor, I should say. The work that they are doing, these guys, they're doing it, and they're going to make it available to the industry. The code that they are developing for this proof of concept, it's going to become available for whoever wants to adopt it. Service companies, rig contractors, IDCS vendors, operators, anyone, So it's an attempt to break that catch-22 that we have as an industry, where nobody is willing to take the risk until someone else does it, and nobody is going to do it until there is some funding from somewhere. So Eric is trying to break that pattern, basically. Okay, so that's the purpose for the demo, the context behind it. That on the technical side, this is how it looks like. This is the different setups from ADCS and rig and hardware down here. There is a layer that Eric is developing. Eric and his team are developing here what they call the bridges. These are interfaces, if you want, between the green layer, which is the DWIS, let's say, components, and the specific ADCS system. The translation, if you want, happens at this level here. On this side, everything looks the same. On the bottom, going down, it uses the specific APIs for each ADCS system. So the DWIS layer here includes several components. The key one in the middle is the DD hub, which is like a data aggregator, essentially, that brings everything together. All the data, all the traffic happens at that module, up and down. There are a few other elements here that are very important. There is a drilling process state interpreter that looks at all the data, even on digital twins, and provides a state vector, if you want, that anyone can use. How can I say? A single state vector, so we don't have different actors using different states, so to speak. And there is, of course, a scheduler, how to sequence tasks and activities. There is a logger where it keeps track of everything that happened and where commands came from whom, when, etc., for accountability purposes. There is contextual data that John has been working on, bringing in information from the planning, from execution, from the BHA, drilling fluids, context information from the next layer, if you want, of the hierarchy, planning maybe. All this becomes input that all different actors can use and decide what they're doing. And by actors, I mean the different advisors, the different software applications that use this data from someone else and create data to be consumed by someone else or the rig, And these advisors are up here. These are the pieces that will be plugged in. And Eric, I think he has maybe 6 or 7 providers now that are participating. Some of the service companies, Halliburton, Baker, Aker BP, Sekal, Andre with Petrobras is putting one together. So the idea is that all these different pieces here, without ever having seen each other, they can plug into this architecture, recognize automatically what data is available, produce data, and put it back into the system that everybody else now can recognize and consume. So it's becoming meaningful and important, this demo. It's still a demo, it's still a proof of concept, but now the industry is starting to buy in. So that's exciting in my mind. Some of the sequences or the events that will be simulated there is like, starting simulations, rotation, go on bottom, hit a stringer, go through the stringer, come back, with some unexpected events as well. So to see how the system reacts and make sure that it all handles itself together without creating a train wreck, basically, when things go out of the ordinary, so to speak. So it shouldn't take too much time here. Let me go to the schedule. Sorry. So I'll come back to this. So this is where we are right now. There are all these different pieces of work that Eric has identified. A lot of it is, most of it is done. Some of it is, of course, in progress. And there is similar work, a lot of work to be done, mostly on the bridges side, for interfacing into the DSATS. So the target is still October for this. And it's going to be a physical demo. So, but it's impossible for all of us to be there in person to watch it. So it's going to be recorded and it's going to be available for people to see, especially given that it's going to be 3 separate demos, One of the questions that has come up is, how do we make this more public? And how do we get buy-in from the industry to be aware of this, to see what's going on, to drive what's going on? And that's an ongoing question. And maybe Matt can elaborate more on this, but this is a point that has come up repeatedly on the advisory board discussions. How do we help the work that the work streams are doing? Fund them, and then provide guidance and provide, participation from the industry. So all those are key questions. And what is the right vehicle to do that? Is the advisory board? Do we need something else? Some other leadership role? So I think here is a good forum to tackle, maybe to start this discussion. I don't know if you want to add something to that, Matt.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of reframe part of it. So the advisory board has been looking at all of this work, right? You can see that we're getting closer and closer to being ready for implementation. So what we're thinking is that we're going to stand up an implementation effort. And one of the things that effort will start with is a contract addendum about how the business model for deploying the system will work. Because we know that's going to be one of the first barriers that we'll have to overcome. Another aspect of this is really around developing a vision for the implementation, what that looks like, right? After we do this demo in October, next stage will be finding a rig someplace to be able to work with it and actually deploy it in a real sense. So to do these things, we've been working on communication. I'll post a recent article that JPT was kind enough to promote on the DWIZ SPE paper that we put out this spring.
I have a slide on that there. It is Matt.
Yes, great.
We want keep going. I didn't want to steal your thunder, but
okay.
Highlight,
That's right. But that to us, that's just kind of the first step in the communication process. I think the follow on to this that we're working on today is taking this into a leadership message that we can take to CTOs for operators and the service providers to begin recruiting more participation, more visible support than, what we've had is a bunch of passionate technical people that, have been contributing. So we think it's time to, start shifting gears and make this more visible and start the implementation effort in front of everybody, right? Which means publishing more, which means, taking these events like the October demo and turning it into something that's very visible and very clear in what it communicates, right? It's beyond just plugging the things in and they either work or don't work. It is a milestone in progress toward interoperability. So, we're trying to reframe. It's a technical event, right? I mean, these are small rooms with small capability for audience, but we're trying to figure out, how do we take these and turn them into more showcaseable communication points so that, again, it's all about generating the momentum, getting more people on board, more visible support, and a pathway to implementation. So that's really the things that we're trying to put into structure. I think for the short term, you'll see the advisory board fulfilling this implementation role until we get to the point where we can stand up a work stream that, basically supports this for the other work streams.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, one of the things, this Paul, by the way, one of the things that I was thinking about is there you were talking about getting it on one rig. I mean, the whole point of interoperability means I need to be able to do it on a couple of rigs at a time or two or three. And I know that sounds terrible to say, you're saying go to one, and I'm thinking, no, go to 4 or 5, and 3 of the 5 will be successful. The other 2 may fall off for, operational reasons or whatever. But do you think of scaling that up so that you can show there is an interoperability capability there?
Some point, yeah.
I think we have to at some point, right? I mean, we've been solutioning, maybe trying to get some of the laboratory rigs. There are several service providers that have lab rigs and approaching those as a whole, right? But I mean, I think the pathway is just now being built, right? So it does have to be scalable, right? Obviously, it does have to point toward onshore, offshore, and a broad implementation at some point, right? So the question is, we'll visualize success, then look backwards and see how you got there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I gave a talk at the spring conference for the DSATS group, and what I looked at is we had a couple of instances where we automated one rig. We put a system up in Hebron in East Canada. We put one in Guyana, and there was nobody to share information with. It's like if you learn something, who do you talk to? And those were different systems on top of everything else. And now, if you look at the Land US, we've got 2 contractors. About 15 rigs one, 5 rigs with the other, and soon to be more. But now I've got a work group that if I learn something on one rig, I've got 14 others to share it with, and the rate of learning has been phenomenal. There's that. My takeaway of that is we probably shouldn't do just one.
Yeah.
So, hey, Matt, on this presentation, I was very impressed. If you can go back a couple of slides, Demetrios, to where the list of companies are.
Yeah, I think you are the...
Hey, that is very impressive, because to me, that says DWIS has turned a corner. So I'm impressed by that. And I think going forwards, when you talk about implementation, the things that come to my mind is, A, what's the value proposition? Has it been, how can you articulate it to, like you said, the CTOs, the COOs, these C-suite guys, so they read it and go, damn, we want some of that. Secondly is, I think you're going to be far better off if you have a person who's contracted to lead this implementation, and probably less of a techie and more of a project manager. So somebody out in the industry, probably who's got a couple of gray hairs, and I'm not suggesting me, please don't get me wrong, but somebody with some gray hairs who knows rigs and services and can go talk to these people, then you have to fund that. And when you fund it, to me, make a budget and don't ask for peanuts. You know, when you go to C-suite guys and say, we need 10 grand from 10 of you. Boom. We need 20 grand from 10 of you. That's where you get the money to fund this.
We're thinking on very similar terms, John. What we need is the shameless commerce division that ushers the way forward, and you don't get that by being shy, right? So it has to be visible, it has to be out front, and it has to be very clear in the value that it can and is providing.
Well, the history is for the roadmap, we did round 1 and we got $10,000 from 10 companies. Round 2, those companies came back in, and the back in was 5 grand, new ones was 10 grand, non-profits was 5 grand. And we went up in the end to 220,000 or something. But people bought into it and they saw progress, they saw output, and they bought into round 2. I mean, you could do 2 rounds, or if you have a decent solid budget, you know what you've got to scope out. Don't be shy about it.
Okay. I think Mark has a comment. Mark, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I want to come back to what Paul said about the success that Exxon has had in automation by onshore, by limiting it to 2 contractors, which is very interesting because I work for one of the contractors that's not one of the 2. And for a SPE, if you go down the route, you're going to quickly go to just the end solution will be just one vendor who does everything. So you have to watch watch that side as well.
From creating another silo, you mean, Mark?
Well, yeah. So if SPE goes off and wants to demonstrate something, and they get in bed with just one vendor, you have a real issue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mark, I was, let me clarify my statement a little bit. The reason that Exxon could do that was Exxon was big enough, and those 2 vendors were big enough. They could make progress all on their own. I argue that, again, having 2 or 3 rigs would be 2 or 3 systems as well, not, and I know you guys have a good system that we're not using, and it was, I'm going to say, luck of the draw that it wasn't being used, or we didn't select it. But all that said, I think if you look at the players here, these players are not the ones that we just talked about, are not in that group of the advisors, because they're already making progress on their own. Everybody that's here, I think, needs something, and what they need is a big enough coalition to be able to make progress. So that I'm not at all suggesting that we go down to 1 or 2 at all, and I'm just saying that having a similar system or the same systems allows you to share. And if this whole thing is about interoperability, then let's get some different systems and try them out, where the high level commands, if you will be the same, but the underlying systems can be different.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Mark,
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think you raised a very good point that DSATS doesn't make a mistake under the purview of SPE. I think the flip side, I would say, to that is getting a really strong character to be employed to lead this, and sufficient funds that character and or some other people can do multiple implementations. So it's not constrained to the few. It can be done as far as possible.
Yeah, but one of the things we made really good progress too was I did a lot of the work, some of the early automation stuff that we did, but where we made great progress, we had a field guy, one like a directional drilling coordinator type of person, that level of person that was on the ground, on the rigs, handling those kind of issues. Where we did not have that, it fell apart. It became all theory. I'm a theory guy. Okay, I admit it. I work in an office. I parachute out to the rigs once in a while, but I don't live there. And having somebody that lives that is also essential. So I like your idea of a project manager, but I also think you need a hands-on implementer / rig supervisor, directional drilling coordinator-ish kind of person, something along those lines.
Yeah, good point, Paul. And I back in the days of doing borehole surveying, you could see the same thing back in the 80s and 90s. But I think then the solution to that could be that DWIS makes up a description of the commitment of the suppliers in terms of personnel. So when we come to you with our guy that we're paying and we're bringing you the knowledge and information, you must commit these kind of people full-time dedicated to the implementation.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. Same. Yeah. Either way, we just need to have somebody on the ground that's receptive and that can give good trials and good feedback.
Yeah, and they can handle the local issues with the rig, because you don't want it to trip up because of, a connector won't connect, but the whole system works. It just failed because of a plug,
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, very good discussion, guys. Thank you. A lot of work ahead of us, but Matt is doing an excellent job coordinating the advisory board, and there's participation there from HMP, Todd, and John with Baker, and I think we're getting some traction here. Some real traction. And stay tuned. I guess this demo would be a milestone. Hopefully, we can build on that. Now, moving forward, we saw this slide already. If you haven't seen this article, I think it's a good idea to follow that link, and it's going to be in the recording anyway, or in the slides. There's a good discussion that happened there with Trent about it was following up the paper that we published in March, that Robert van Kuleburg presented at the drilling conference. So a lot of the questions that we're discussing here are coming up there as well, and some ideas, how to move forward. Okay, so let's go to the next one. The next one is a brief update from Rodica. I don't know if Rodica is still here or she had to drop off. So there is some work going on, some discussion essentially going on there. It's a small group. It's not as big as the DWIS, 6-7 people. And we're basically trying to put our arms around the big problem of the verification and validation. How do you ensure that pieces of software, advisors, etc., coming from different vendors, how they all work together? And how do you test this? What steps are involved in the way before you deploy to a rig? How you start, one at a time, then two at a time, through a virtual environment, etc. A lot of questions, as you can imagine. And we're trying to learn as well what other industries are doing in that area, and trying to bring in people from outside. And for now, we had a kind of an internal presentation, if you want, from participants. Like I mentioned, Jonathan Carney, some from Ensign, and Brian from Safe Influx share different views, different ideas. And I mean, that was just scratching the surface. There is much more to learn and to explore. And we have to limit also how much the scope of what we're trying to do, because we're such a small group. For now, the team is trying to put together a paper for the next conference on exactly on that topic, to set the stage. It's not a paper with, showing any results or anything. We're just showing what is the state of the industry and what examples are out there from other industries. You can see there the title and the participants, so that we have another month or so before we submit the final manuscript. But this is to kind of put us on the radar of people. This is, I would say, this is where DWIS was maybe 4 years ago. That's kind of the maturity stage. And what Daryl was trying to do, to keep talking and talking and talking and talking and talking until finally hope we get some traction and some interest and some structure, and then some real progress is happening now. Hopefully we can do the same with the VNV But again, the key is, get people to participate, to engage. That's all really I have on this. Let's move to the next one, another important topic. So robotics. Unfortunately, I don't think we have either Fred or Shashi. Shashi is off, and Fred retired again. So later this month, in a couple of weeks, the 27th, I think, or the 28th, there is the final competition for the 23-24 cycle. So there are 7 universities participating. You can see there. It's going to be online. So if any who wants to participate, Enrique can share the link, or I can forward the link, and you can watch what's happening. I think that's gonna end of the cycle. It's gonna work out, fine. The big question. There are 2 big questions with robotics. One is, let's start with the funding going forward for the next year. There is not enough funds to fund the cycle. We need around 25K per year from sponsorships, etc., to cover expenses, travel, some little support of the teams, etc. This is a point that Fred has highlighted for quite some time now, and it created a discussion. How do we support this initiative going forward? And John McPherson has explored a little bit to see if we can bring in, some geothermal interest maybe from the Department of Energy or from other, maybe some other sources. If we can change a little bit the flavor of the robotics, that's one possibility. And we looked at it with Robin, who is the director for drilling in SPE, to see what other options are there. A few years ago, there was an attempt to put the robotics under SPE, under the SPE umbrella, to be supported directly from SPE. This didn't materialize, but it's not. Maybe it's time to look at it again as one of the options, not maybe the main one, but one of the options.
Yeah, Dimitrios, it did materialize. I was involved with that initiative along with Jeff Moss and, of course, Fred. It did materialize. And then Mark Rubin, he took ages to agree to it. When he finally agreed to it, and they said they would take over getting sponsorships, they had the big connections with companies, everything was looking great. And then when they had a financial setback, he said, I'm cutting Drillbotics. Boom, that was it, end of story. So it's high risk. I mean, SPE, if you look at SAE, Formula SAE and these other formula competitions, the big guys, the top end people get involved in looking after it. SPE managers failed us on that one. They finally took it on, lack of commitment in the process of doing it, and then dropped it as soon as they had a cutback. And I think it's shown there's a huge risk of taking it to that next level. You get away from the passion of Fred and Sashi and people who make it work.
Exactly. I mean, so looking at all the different options, John, I think this one was one we had to put on the table, but I'm not sure if it's going to happen or no. But this slide here is a summary of what we discussed with Robin, who talked to Terry, the current SP president, and he did get support, and he's circulating inside the SPE to see if he can get enough momentum with marketing, etc. But having the SPE itself sponsor the initiative is one of the options. Another one is for SPE to support it as we go out to operators and we look for funding. It doesn't mean that SPE itself has to put the money up front, but if they say, yes, this is a good program and we bring in new people to the industry and students and we go out to big operators, for example, then that is another option as well. So we're looking at all these different possibilities here to see how we can get some sustainable funding, over 5 years, for example, not on an annual basis, go out with a hat in hand, asking for 2K, 5K, 3K, etc. I don't have really any results, any update to present. That's where that is. But it's important to read some clarity on this, because the next cycle is starting in July for the universities. And with the current, right now, I think we can only bring 5K from PayPal, that is locked there for a while, and that's pretty much it, what we have in terms of funds for that.
So that 5K is still locked in there. I talked to Ed Tovar. He's now back, has his own company again.
Yeah.
So he said he would get on it, but nothing happened. So I'll drop him another note. On the DOE, the person we talked to there is now the director of the Geothermal Technologies office, obviously overloaded. So I need to go and find an SME over there who'll move it along. So somebody who has the time to actually look at it.
Yeah.
One of their technical advisors. But these are all options. So,
yeah.
But it has to be somebody who can dedicate the time, the enthusiasm, and the money to keep it going. Otherwise, it's just going to dry up.
Mm-hmm.
One name I'd throw into the hat for you to consider would be Ford Brett with PetroSkills. So PetroSkills does a lot of training, and drilling engineering is under that training, and they have alliances with major companies. Shell, I'm not sure if Exxon's in it, but a lot of major companies are tied into PetroSkills as their source of training. And Ford has done a lot with SPE. It would be interesting to have a conversation with him to see, A, what does he think as a route, and B, is there a role for PetroSkills to bring in their alliance members to support this program?
It's a good idea, actually. Okay, and then there is a second point to discuss on drill robotics, which is the documentary. So as probably some of you remember, in the drilling conference in Stavanger last year, not in 24, in 23, David Gibson was there, recording video and footage and interviewing people, and then he traveled to some of the universities that had participated over the years and collected more video footage. And also he himself, he had reached out to sponsors to bring in money to fund this documentary. So I think he had brought in something like, I don't know, 20K, 25K, something like that. And we have given him, he brought it in, means money came into DSATS. So we gave to David half of that money as a deposit for this documentary. And now the whole effort got stuck at that point. We haven't given the balance, and the documentary is not progressing. And this is because of some disagreement that happened about the licensing, about who has the rights to that documentary and the drill robotics, and the right to use commercially the logos and the faces, and the all the material, basically. And David wants to keep control of all this for Vidor Locksmith or whatever Gibson reports. And some of the participants have not signed off, Fred being one of them, and most of the other participants. So we are in impasse here. And I don't know really how to progress. It seems like David is kind of digging in his heels and not willing to show some flexibility. So we are stuck there, essentially. I don't think it's not a technical issue. It's not lack of content. It's marketing, let's call it. Or so just wanted to make sure everybody is aware of this. And I don't know if what's going to take to address it, to fix it. Sasi had a conversation with David, but it didn't go very well. And it's maybe next time Sasi is here, he can give us the details. But that's something that is open, and we need to resolve, I think.
I'm a little bit surprised. I saw the paper that he asked to be signed, and it was just the piece I signed anyway. It was just for the interview I gave to be used in the documentary, which that was the purpose. So I signed it.
Mm-hmm.
But so now he wants to go beyond that to where he owns the whole documentary, and
I think it's a little bit more than that. That is at the point of the discussion here. I'll try to ask Fred or Sasi to come in one of the following calls to give us more details. But That's where it is.
Well, we think each passing week the documentary becomes more and more. I mean, it becomes very old, dated.
Yeah.
So
I think the lesson learned, Dimitrios, is that when DSATS makes agreements where there's significant funding going into it, use that DSATS also has a solid agreement. Now, for the roadmap, we had to make a contract with, I think, BP and Chevron, which was a real nuisance. Can everybody turn the sound down? Anyway, so for the roadmap, what we did was we made a comprehensive one-page invoice, and in the invoice, it had the terms and conditions. When you pay the invoice, you're agreeing to these terms and conditions. It avoided an elaborate contract, but it got certain specifications in there, such as our commitment to them and their obligations.
I'm not sure where this is coming from. Is it?
Everybody's gone silent now by the look of it. So I just think in the future, it's important to look at, write down what is the important components of the agreement so that you have something in writing up front.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point for the future. The one thing that I would say, I think David Gibson would like something from me. I know him well enough. I wouldn't have any problem with contacting him. I'd like a little more background, but you know, if I can do something to help get the logjam unjammed, that would be great. I would be happy to do it if there's a way to do so. But
okay, thank you, Paul. I think we cannot at this point, you know, freeze. We have to continue this conversation and try to find some common ground. Yeah. So
I did negotiate a deal between Exxon and NOV that neither party really liked, and it was you just go to a high enough level and say, look, we're big boys and girls, let's get on with it and do something. Yeah. And I think that's hopefully what we can do there. So anyway.
Okay. So that's where we stand on those. We have like 10 minutes left. So the last section for the call today is what's coming up.
Hey, Dimitrios, sorry, something comes to my mind that you might want to do, but do it very carefully. You might want to go through Greg Hickey to the SPE attorney, but not to pull them into the discussion, but to actually inform them of the situation and ask any guidance they can give you. Because if the whole thing does go belly up, they're going to get pulled into it. So I think it's advanced protocol to get through Greg to talk to her and then keep her out of the negotiations. Don't try and use that as leverage until it may become necessary. But at least if it goes wrong, she's in the know up front. And you're not going to be held by her to saying you shouldn't have done this or shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you, John. So on the upcoming events, this is really what's in the calendar for now. We have the ATC in September in New Orleans. We have our event was approved. It's going to be that Monday afternoon. It's from 6:30 to 8, if I'm not mistaken. The 23rd, I believe, is that Monday. Let me confirm real quick.
September 23rd is Monday.
Yeah. So Deep is the chair for North America now for events, and he's in charge of this. Unfortunately, he was traveling to India the last few weeks, and he's on his way back as we speak, I think. So I have a call with him on Monday to try to get this off the ground and put together a committee and try maybe to bring in some people from outside the industry, as we discussed earlier. The format is not fully defined yet, but we owe to Greg, you know, a description and to go on the website, which is going up soon. So that's where that stands. Then we have a spot from the SPE webinars on October 4th. It's open. We don't have assigned a speaker yet or a topic. So we have to fill that. And if anybody has something to share from the group here, by all means, feel free to reach out. And alternatively, we have those community calls that also is an opportunity to share, knowledge with the DSATS community. And we had the one last month with Jonathan. Now for July, it's going to be July 14, I believe. No, 11. July 11, I think, is the next call. And that we will get one of the speakers that have shared information recently, maybe from the VNV or some other. So this is where it is. Now, in parallel, Edgar, our webmaster, has looked to see what's going to take to organize our own webinars, similar to some of the other technical sections. And I think Edgar found some technical obstacles that need to be worked out before we can do that. Nothing major. Maybe we have to pay some more for our web service provider to get some of the capabilities that we need, but nothing extraordinary. It's not there yet. It's not in place. The capability it's not available today, but I think we can do it. It just takes some effort, and Edgar and Mori hopefully can work out this. Some of the other sections are doing really a good job bringing in speakers, high caliber speakers, and giving webinars, and even get some sponsorship from companies for those webinars. So
yeah, but one thing is some of the other sections are charging for their webinars, huh? $25
I saw the geothermal discussion,
yeah. Which $25 here, Tony, but can make some jokes about it, but I don't think that's quite the way we want to go.
No, I don't think so either.
One thing I'm just thinking about topics. I've given several SPE papers that I've been asked to go back and summarize or give in a different environment, whether it be SPE Gulf Coast or, summarize a couple of papers together and put it in a DSATS discussion or whatever.
That would be a good way, Paul.
So that, I'm just thinking that maybe something like that if we high graded, I happen to know that Matt Isbell did a really good presentation that would be worthy of redoing within DSATS as one of these seminars, because there's a lot of people that did not make it down to Galveston. Yeah. So anyway, and I know of some others too, but I just happen to know that one because
if we have a pipeline of names that we can route, a pool of names that I can reach out and assign some of these webinars or community calls, that will be good, So.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say it's easier to get permission to represent something you've already presented, so that should lower the barrier.
Yeah,
Demetrius, I think you should add the 2025 symposium in Stavanger, because I know Seraphim is on the call. She should speak for herself, but I know that she has initiated the setup process on that.
Yes. Seraphim and Eric are both kind of helping put that together, and they started proactively, putting, and I commend them for that. And I think it's going to be a very good event based on the experience from the previous symposiums in Europe, Serafima, you want to add something, or is that?
Yeah, I can just say a few words. I guess from our side, we're trying to put the organizing committee. And I guess the goal is to have actually a meeting sometime now in June already to discuss the major things as the structure, how we go along, and what are we going to do, and maybe even, I don't know, in the same meeting or a separate meeting to discuss the potential topics. So that I guess, July is kind of a dead month in Norway, so maybe so that in August we can kind of come back to that with some information prepared and define the topics. So one question is, do we need to present it also in this group? Like a couple of topics? What is the plan for? Or
the committee? I think the committee really will is in charge of coming up with a topic. I'm not sure the entire group here. We have to have an open discussion.
The best history is when your committee comes up with the format. So there's multiple formats, the topic and the proposed speakers, and then shares it with this committee to get endorsement. I don't think you want to get into discussing it here if you've got
no, that's what I thought, like to present it here, right? So that we come up with some topic, or I don't know, a couple of topics, I don't know, and then just to present it here and hear the feedback. Maybe that was
I think you take all your decisions and then share them for information, and if people have an issue, they can give you the feedback off this. That's the way to do it. The other important thing is at a certain stage is to present a budget to the DSATS committee here so that they are going to endorse it in case things go belly up.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
And with that was the last slide I had. That's the conclusion.
I can hear you typing. Mika, for the DWIS presentation or testing, whatever it's called,
Demo.
You said the small rooms and things. Is it going to be virtual as well, or is it only?
Yeah, I think Eric is trying to make it virtual, and he's going to record it as well.
Okay, but virtual would be interesting to know if it is.
Yeah, it will. So, yeah, go ahead, please.
No, I think Matt can tell us more, maybe.
We're trying to explore it, right? I mean, first and foremost, Eric needs to get it scheduled, and then we need to figure out how to shamelessly promote it.
Nestor?
Yes, I want to share you that I've been talking with John, and John helped me a lot in trying to do a presentation under the Argentina section. I just sent by WhatsApp to you, and the idea was to put in the Latin American region, just to show a little bit about what we are doing. So the early seating automation, where we are, is the subject of this presentation that John is going to be doing on 27th of June. I send you the flyer also. I put in my LinkedIn, and also the SPE of Argentina section put it, so we can share to other people and maybe try to see a way to promote DSAT and where we are. And the idea is also to put another presentation in the future directly with the companies. I mean, for example, NOV and Schlumberger, and the same presentation for a small presentation of 30 minutes each one. And then not as marketing, not as a marketing subject, but as where we are, how are each company doing, but especially with examples. If they do a very good success in some operation, and I think that John is going to give a very good kick of this type of series.
Do you think we can record those?
Sorry to don't say before, but I've been with a lot of working with the people here in the SPE Argentina too, and try to find out some places, because Argentina, we have one presentation each month, and sometimes a distinguished lecture, but we are trying to promote every month.
Okay.
If you see the flyer, Argentina section has used also some sponsorship for that of the local company for this kind of presentation. Maybe we can do the same if we try to promote strictly directly for ourselves.
Yeah, it's a good initiative, Nestor. Thank you for doing that. Do you have students also in this presentation, or mostly people from the industry, or what is your audience?
Well, we promote to everybody. So we promote inside the section, and we send emails. Also, we use our social media.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Before we close, any other comments from anybody?
One quick one on the upcoming SPE forum on accelerating adoption of digital. There will be a session dedicated to operations, right? So that should focus on DSATS in my opinion. And, you know, there'll also be design and planning conversations as well. So.
Do you have a date already for that, Matt?
Yeah, it's in early October, and registration should open next week.
Okay, very good. Here in Texas somewhere?
Montgomery.
Matt, registration open today. I got an email.
Okay, the sessions will be published next week.
So we register blind today.
Yeah.
We trust you, Matt.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thank you everyone for your time. Appreciate it. And the next call is going to be, like I said, July 11, a community call, okay? The invitation for that will come about a week before. Thanks again.
Yeah, Demetrius, thanks. I think it was a good meeting and I enjoyed the dialogue on multiple issues.
Okay, thank you guys. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.